Have you ever caught yourself trying to be spiritual enough for someone else's approval? Well, here's the twist. Perfectionism on the spiritual path is just another trauma response. After years of chasing validation from gurus and coaches, I discovered that true awakening begins the moment we stop performing and start listening inward. There was a time when I measured my worth by how many hours I meditated, how clean my diet was, and whether my mentors praised my light. I remember sitting in retreats, scanning the room and seeing if I looked blissful enough. My childhood wounds, growing up in a family where love came when I overachieved, morphed into a spiritual persona. Psychologist Nathaniel Branden wrote that when trauma compromises our self-esteem, we learn to perform to be loved. On the spiritual path, this becomes saint syndrome, trying to be perfect to prove that we're worthy of awakening. The problem isn't wanting to grow. The problem is believing someone else can measure our progress. Trauma researchers point out that perfectionism often develops as a survival response to unpredictability in childhood. Striving for impossible standards gives us a sense of control when we once felt powerless. But chasing spiritual gold stars drains our life force. It keeps us in our heads, cut off from our bodies. And when we inevitably fall short, shame floods our system. If you've felt this spiral, you're not alone. Let's unpack why it happens and how to gently opt out. Perfectionism isn't a moral failing. It's a survival strategy. In our earliest relationships, we learned that being good or holy kept us safe. In my family, I believed my worth depended on pleasing others. So when spiritual teachers spoke about purity, I interpreted it through that lens. Most meant well, but my nervous system couldn't tell the difference between parental expectations and guru expectations. I internalized a voice that said, if I slip, I'll be banished. This is why many survivors of narcissistic or controlling families repeat the pattern with mentors. We recreate familiar power dynamics, hoping this time it will heal us. But the healing doesn't come from finally pleasing an authority figure. It comes from stepping off the hamster wheel entirely. There was a moment when a teacher I revered told me I wasn't surrendered enough. Their words pierced me. I doubled my practices, watched more videos by Ram Dass, quoted David Hawkins' levels like scripture, and nothing changed. Eventually, I realized I was chasing an image. My teacher was human, prone to projection, moods, and blind spots. I had made them into a parental figure, hoping they'd give me what I'd never got at home: unconditional acceptance. Alan Watts warned against turning enlightenment into an achievement because he compared it to trying to bite your own teeth. David Hawkins reminded us that the ego always wants us to get somewhere, but presence is about letting go. So when I stopped looking outward for permission, something shifted. I could still learn from teachers, but I no longer outsourced my worth. I began listening to my own body, resting when tired, crying when sad, laughing when absurdity appeared. My compass turned inward. Eckhart Tolle speaks of being the witness, the awareness behind thoughts and emotions. The witness doesn't measure, it simply notices. When we obsess about being spiritual enough, we're identified with the mind's image of spirituality. The paradox is that genuine surrender often arises when we stop striving. Think about those ordinary moments, like washing dishes, walking in nature, when ease arises unforced. There's no scoreboard, you're just alive. And in that ordinariness, there's freedom. Your path may look messy and nonlinear. That doesn't make it less valid. In fact, spiritual teacher Alan Cohen often says that laughter and play are closer to God than grim determination. When you allow joy into your practice, rigidity dissolves. Try this. Take a sheet of paper and write at the top, my spiritual to-do list. List everything you think you must do to be enough. Meditation, diet, reading, or mantras. Next to each item, write, does this nourish me or does it drain me? Now crumple the paper in your hand. Feel the tension. Take a breath. On the exhale, unclench and let it fall. Notice how your body feels. You may even laugh. This ritual shows how many obligations we've internalized and gives permission to release them. Keep what genuinely nourishes. Drop what's just a badge of honor. In the sovereignty sequence, we go deeper into rebuilding a practice that flows from your felt sense, not someone else's checklist. Choosing authenticity over approval is one of the bravest steps you can take. It may feel like stepping into a void, especially if you've always relied on external mirrors, but that void is fertile. If you'd like support dismantling the inner critic and rebuilding self-trust, download my free somatic meditation. It's gentle, trauma-informed, and guides you back to your own wisdom. The link is below. Thank you for walking this path with me, not as a student, but as a fellow traveler. And as always, may the shadow wane and the stardust remain.